Hopefully
All right.
better.
Yeah, that should be working. I now have you going through your own separate channel. So
Okay.
there you go.
Great.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. So as we were saying, some of this work on the Renegade Mastermaker is in progress. It will change over time. This is an early look at it. The expectation is this will be released with Update 38. And we did make some changes literally minutes before going live that are not obviously reflected in the website here yet.
So they're not reflected on the forums because we've just made them, and even those that we talk about here today might change before it ever sees Lamania, let alone live. So still very much a tree in progress.
Yep. Nonetheless, this is the long in the works third Artificer enhancement tree. Have you gone... Now, I know that in a lot of ways you were largely involved in the creation of this third tree. Has it changed over time in terms of what you maybe thought it might be as to what it is now?
Oh, sure. I mean, I've had versions of this tree in mind since probably about 2013 or 2014. It just never came forward enough in our production schedule prior to now to get a lot of work done. So there were times where it focused more on different things. Artificer very much is a tree with a lot of different kinds of mechanics, many different kinds of spells, many different things one could focus on. Ultimately, the direction we are going to end up going is focusing heavily on repair and admixture healing and defense.
Sure.
And I'm pretty happy with where it's going so far.
And the choice to focus on defense is because Battle Engineer is largely offense at this point, right?
Yes, there's a little bit of defense in Battle Engineer, but one of the things that we've noticed in doing a lot of both internal testing and observation of live characters is that if you look at Artificer as a class, a lot of its damage holds up fairly well, more or less when you look at the different builds and different facets of it. But defensively, unless you're splashing out to, say, get evasion from a couple levels of Rogue, or getting evasion through other means, or skewing into something like Stalwart Defender that could get you a lot of defensive bonuses in heavier armor, your defenses are garbage.
Yeah.
So one of the things we wanted to do with this tree is make it so that a pure Artificer has some defensive options available to them.
And then the other tree that we didn't talk about is Arcano Technician, which is largely a spell-focused tree.
It's a spell-focused tree, and there's a few things in this tree that could synergize well to a caster who wanted to build themselves up in armor.
Sure. So one of the things, and we talked about this on the with Torek on the Druid last week, is that this does not talk about the Iron Defender.
Right.
This is not involving changes to the Iron Defender pet. That just isn't in the scope for Update 38 here. Hopefully something we'll do in the future.
Yes, Torek and I have talked about some of the things we'd like to do there at length. They're just out of the scope of what we're doing for these classes right now.
All right, so general changes. Construct Essence remains the same. That's the one where you basically trade off. You become a little more artificer-y,
yes.
right?
Yeah. And I just noted that in there because the other things in that line are changing, and I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that that's staying exactly as it is.
All right, Construct Exemplar is no longer part of the line with the other two trees, I assume that means.
Oh,
right?
We skipped the second note there for improved Construct Essence. That's an important one. So,
improved Construct Essence now functions like Construct Exemplar. It does presently on live, granting full Construct species typing. That means basically you're a Construct instead of a Fleshy?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Construct Exemplar right now on live essentially lets someone who has taken the feat line to that point, who's not a Warforged, get a lot of the racial benefits of being a Warforged. It's an interesting line, but in retrospect, after it went live, very few people used it because a 3 feet line like that is relatively expensive for an Artificer for the benefits that it gained. And they are pretty good benefits, but possibly not quite enough to justify a 3 feet line, so we're bringing it down to a 2 feet line.
All right, Combat Expertise is added to the Artificer class feat list. That is kind of nice.
It is kind of nice. Yeah. It is a feat that Artificer can make use of, especially with regards to something that's in the Renegade Mastermaker tree. But unlike a couple other classes who do get it in their feat list, Artificer, who's well positioned to use it, doesn't get it. So we're just going to add it to that class feat list.
And Empower Healing is not just to give maybe you a slight boost on your healing if you are an artificer with like your admixtures and
right.
that kind of thing.
So,
too, right?
So one of the things that jumped out at me when I was starting to look at supporting admixtures strongly in the new tree was that Curative Admixture spells benefit from the Empower Healing meta magic, but as an artificer you can't get that unless you multi-class into a class that does get that. So it stuck out as a little bit strange. So we're just going to add that to be available if you are an artificer. So if you wanted to take that feat to improve your admixture spells, you have that available to you.
All right, I wanted to pass along a question that we got from Samus Garobu, who says, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around working on the 2 pet classes but not working on the pets. Why would we do that, essentially? My understanding is that through these changes we're doing for Druid and Artificer, we're placing these classes in a position that when we do take care, that it'll sort of synergize with the pet work that we'll be doing in the future. Right.
And it very much is the sort of thing where, and I don't know if Torque gave a particular estimate when you were speaking with him previously, but at least some of the estimates that he and I had into what it would take to take Druid and Artificer pets and make them viable, and the time estimate for that was 2 to 3 times as long as we're going to be spending on the current Druid and Artificer work. And so it is just not viable at the present time, and we're hoping to make time for that in the future. Some of the things we're doing here will set us up to be able to do that better. But doing that large of a volume here and now doesn't fit with the other things that we're trying to accomplish at the moment.
One thing that will be changing with the Iron Defender, and about the only thing that I can really see changing with the Iron Defender here, is you're no longer going to lose hit points and spell points when your doggy dies.
Yeah, we went back and forth on that a bunch and essentially decided that, especially given their current state where they're not the most useful companions, we'd rather just remove that penalty when they die and replace things connected to that with better things.
Yeah. We're one step closer to basically having self-destructing dogs.
Oh, that's something I've wanted to do for a while, and I'm hoping that when we get around to get around to a pass on those pets, that we'll have something like that for the Iron Defender.
All right, we're heading into admixture changes, so I have a couple of questions from chat, but I kind of wanted, for the benefit of those who are less familiar with admixtures, to go through the changes, and then we'll take care of those questions there. So, Curative Admixture, Cure Critical Wounds, is now a 5th level Artificer spell in the General Artificer spell table. Scrolls of Curative Admixture, Cure Critical Wounds, will now occasionally drop in Treasure, so that means you can memorize it as a artificer. Curative Admixture spells have their spell point costs adjusted, I assume, down?
No? I honestly don't remember offhand. No. I made them closer to their counterparts, the non-admixture counterparts of similar spells.
All right.
It may have gone up on some and down on others. I'll see if I can get a more complete list the next time that we post this.
Sure, and then also the caster levels are now going to match their sort of cure non-mass analogs.
Yes. Yep. Maximum caster levels on the admixture spells were weird, for lack of any better term, and so I tried to make them very consistent with the cure spells so people would know what to expect. And
they're now properly considered conjuration spells for things that benefit your conjuration school.
They are listed as conjuration spells and have been since their introduction, but they were missing a few things that conjuration spells have that would allow effects like Magister gets a bonus to the your caster level of your conjuration spells, and admixtures were not affected by that, and now they will be.
So for those who are like, what the heck is a curative admixture? Some people maybe just haven't really even used them all that much. It's sort of a projectile healing that you use with a potion as an artificer, and you chuck it, and it's like an AoE healing there. So do you need to have potions? How's this going to work when you, as an artificer? So
a lot of the basic spell versions in your spellbook required you to have potions in your inventory of that same kind to throw the spell. The new one, the Cure Critical Wounds, does not, in part because there are no analogous potions in general vendors. It is slightly more expensive to spell point wise to cast as a result. But for the most part, you need a potion to be able to cast the spell to throw that potion and make it an AoE when it hits.
All right. Z Wonderpuff, tossing a pot is slow. Will admixtures get quickened? Grumpy Gus says.
So that's something that we are presently on the fence about. There's a bit of a debate there. One of the things about it is you get these these AoE cure spells at generally a cheaper spell point cost than analogous cleric or favored soul might, but some of the trade-off is that you need to throw them. So we are considering possibly allowing them to be quickened, but there might need to be some other trade-offs involved in terms of balance if we do.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where once the tree for Renegade Mastermaker is largely implemented, we're going to do some internal play testing, take a look at how that feels, and possibly make some balanced decisions from there. So I won't say yes or no at this point.
All right. What about positive spell power? Will it benefit from positive spell power?
Yes, they do benefit from positive spell power in general, and I don't believe the scale that they benefit from it is planned to change.
All right. So let's, I guess, anything else we should mention about curative admixtures? How about making reconstruct scrolls possible to buy from vendors? We have heal scrolls, and we've long had people who would like, can I get the reconstruct version of that, basically?
Not currently on our to-do list, but something we can definitely think about.
It's not a bad idea, especially we have a lot more, or Warforged and things like that around.
We'll take a look at it.
Yeah. All right, Arcano Technician's getting a few changes. I guess we'll just let people take a look at that because that's sort of outside the scope of what we wanted to talk about. Anything you want to mention on Arcano Technician, though?
Nothing in particular. Some of the things are changing to scale better. Some of them are changing as a result of one or two things moving over to Renegade Mastermaker. There's a couple of TBDs in there, and that's another one where once Renegade Mastermaker is more firm, the smaller changes we're making in there are going to become more concrete.
Zero Cool over on YouTube. Renegade Mastermaker looks like it is more beneficial toward construct races. By the way, the name sounds like a Cooler Mastermaker, cases, name, scheme, etc., etc. But is that really the case that this is a tree focused on constructs?
So in a way, yes. In part because artificers are in some ways focused on constructs. There are several trees out there that do a lot to support positive healing, but there's not a whole lot to support repair healing. This tree does a little of both. There are benefits in here in this tree, and we'll kind of get to those as we get to the tree, that Warforged and Bladeforged are going to be able to take without needing additional feats, but those same things are available to people that take that 2-feat construct essence line as well.
Okay.
So I would say that it leans a little heavily toward construct races. I do think that lines up fairly well with the lore of how artificers are depicted in some of the tabletop.
Sure. All right, so the cores. Each core ability in this tree will get you 10 maximum hit points, plus 5 positive spell power, plus 5 repair spell power. Core 2, while in medium or heavy or adamantine body armor, your equipped armor gets you a shield bonus to AC and immunity to magic missiles.
And that is actually one of the things that just changed. That shield bonus to AC is now an alchemical bonus to AC,
nice.
And I'll get into why when we get a little higher in the tree.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Which, again, subject to change, but it's one of the things that has just recently changed.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times I think artificers have rune arms rather than shields, but not everybody does. So,
right.
All right, Core 3, Curative Admixture, Cure Serious Wounds, SLA. That's the one we talked about a little bit earlier.
Cure Critical is the one we talked about earlier.
Oh,
they do get access to Cure Serious in their spellbook currently, but here's a cheap and cheerful SLA version of it.
All right, Core 4, 30 Repair Amp and 50 maximum hit points.
Mm-hmm. And that one just got, in addition to what's there, plus 2 to max dex bonus in medium or heavy armor, or I believe adamantine body. I need to double check on that as well.
All right. Core 5, I know that there's been a lot of discussion about Core 5 here on the forums about the Radiant Force Field SLA. Useful spell, costs 30 spell points, but does have a 3-minute cooldown.
Yes.
That's a fairly long cooldown.
It is a fairly long cooldown. The idea with this, so that is close to the same stats as the spell itself, which gets you a 30-second reduction in damage. You take 25% less damage for that 30 seconds with a 3-minute cooldown. This SLA on a different cooldown is the same thing, so essentially you can keep that up for a minute out of every 3 minutes if you're using both the spell and the SLA.
Okay. And then the core 6 is +2 Constitution, Intelligence, +10 PRR and MRR, Physical Magical Resistance rating, +3 caster levels with Admixture and Repair Wounds spells.
And this is also getting a bump at the moment to max dex bonus in heavy armor types.
Nice. And Unbreakable Force Field SLA. For 6 seconds, you take 95% less damage from all sources except untyped. That's a short burst, but a pretty big one.
So this is one that I know some people have gone back and forth on the forums with as well. It is very much meant to be I know a big attack is coming, I'm going to push this button and hopefully not take it, or I am taking a lot of damage over time, I'm going to throw this up so that I can cast a spell to get rid of whatever is plaguing me or to repair very quickly, and be pretty likely to not have that be... to not die in the process.
I would also imagine, unlike rogues, artificers tend not to have evasion.
Right.
And sometimes they need to get through traps because the trap box is on the other side of the trap.
It'll definitely help with that as well. There's a number of abilities in this tree that will help you push through something like that if you just need a couple of seconds to get through.
All right, Tier 1, Curative Admixture, Cure Light Wounds SLA, Repair Light Damage SLA, Supporting Construction, so while in medium or heavy armor, you'll get +2, 4, 6 PRR. Skills, you can up your repair, heal, and balance, and then toughness. I'm getting a lot of hit points out of the Renegade Mastermaker.
There's a lot of hit points in this tree.
Because if you've got all 6 cores and you get 10 hit points per core, so there's 60 right there, plus the 50 you get from core 4, you're already at 110 extra hit points. And then on top of the toughness and that, you've got another, 125 if I add correctly. And there may even be some other stuff in there too, so yeah. All right, anything we should mention about Tier 1? It seems pretty straightforward.
It's a pretty basic tier. There's quite a few useful things hit there, especially at low level. I think it's fairly useful for a set of Tier 1 abilities.
All right, Tier 2, Power of Creation, 5, 10, or 15 repair and positive spell power.
That has now gone away. One of the things I had changed today, it has been replaced with... So one of the things we had initially set out with this tree is to kind of make it essentially combat style agnostic. And that's something we're walking back a little bit on in favor of a little bit more melee support. And so that ability on this tier has been replaced, at least at the moment, with a melee cleave that is still being worked on, but has a few defensive angles to it as well.
Okay, cool. Converter, you create a small device that floats near an ally, target player hireling or druid wolf pet at touch range will take 100% base healing from repair spells. So what does that mean?
So this is kind of a weird one, but it's one of the most it's one of the abilities I'm most excited for in this tree. You need to be fairly close to an ally in your party when you do this. But then you activate the ability. It works sort of like a touch range spell. And they get a little floaty drone behind their head. And over the duration that's active, I'm trying to remember what exactly it says right now for duration.
It just says for the duration, 3-minute cooldown.
That ally essentially heals from repair spells with 100% base healing. So most Warforged have 100% base healing, and then repair amplification is stacked on top of that.
Okay.
So what this does is it takes a non-construct ally who normally have 0 base healing from repair and sets that for the duration to 1.
Oh, okay.
So if you cast a repair light damage on them, they will take the normal healing from it. So it means if you're invested heavily in this tree and invested heavily in repair spell power, you could pick a non-Warforged or Bladeforged ally in your party and be like, for the next 3 minutes, I'm going to be able to repair you normally.
What does the device look like?
It's a little floating ball thing with some things around it. We're still working on the exact art for it, but they look pretty cool. And it looks similar to the other ones that pop up a little bit later in this tree. And so if you had Converter on you and then the other 3 running, you could have as many as 4 of these little things kind of floating around your head. And then if you were also a favored soul, you could have an Archon. So there's a lot of things floating around their heads.
So you're adding another element to my pew 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 build. It should be a Rubik's Cube. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
No.
So it's very similar in size to the Archon, but we made sure that it doesn't intersect with it, so it doesn't look weird if you've got those and the Archon going at the same time for some reason.
All right, Armor Mastery, 1, 2, 3, Armor Class, and Armor Max Dex bonus. Now, from what I'm getting is there's a bunch of ways to increase your armor max dex bonus. The reason you might want to do that is you'll have dexterity as a primary 2-hit stat for ranged, things like that.
Yes,
and this will give you basically more armor class in that tree.
It increases your armor class as well as if you're in medium and heavy armor, your access to dodge.
Cool.
Which they sort of desperately need.
So stronger admixtures. Your admixture spells will get 3, 6, or 10 plus to their maximum caster level. So just for those who maybe have not used these before or frankly are just not familiar with the rules of this, how does max caster level impact an admixture?
So in the same way it does any other healing spell or a lot of spells in general, a lot of spells that do healing or damage have a maximum caster level. And that is to say that they improve with every caster level in the casting class you have up to a maximum. So if a spell has a maximum caster level of 5, it means that at level 1 it's going to cast for an amount. At level 2 it goes up, 3 it goes up. At caster level 5 it hits a number and then doesn't go above there. Increasing max caster level on certain kinds of spells brings that base up. So if that one adds 10 to the maximum caster level of your admixtures, it means an admixture that normally has a maximum caster level at 5 benefits from caster levels up to 15 instead.
Okay, cool. Good chance before we move on to Tier 3 to get a couple of questions out of the way. Are constructs still penalized in healing power using wands? My Cure Miner seems to do nothing for others in Reaper. That may be a Reaper thing.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I'd have to look into it.
Yeah, I'm not really... Sorry, Silent, I don't really have a good answer for that one. Permanent shield is sweet. Yes, it is.
Yes. Ran an Artificer through Old Bone Grinder recently. Magic missiles.
Yeah.
Magic missiles.
How about turret scaling with Artificer level? I know we saw that a lot on the forums there as well.
That is another one that I really wanted to work something in here regarding the turrets, and the scope of it as I investigated what it would take to do it the way we really wanted to do it was too large. And that's another one that, if I'm suddenly blessed with a lot of open time to do something without any restrictions, that's something I would like to get in.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's not likely to fit in the time that we have right now.
Sure. Okay. Question on Construct Exemplar. As anybody can take it, will it grant fleshies, non-constructs, the ability to be healed because of the plus 20 repair amplification?
No. Just like equipping a item that grants repair amp does not grant you base repair healing. Repair amp is, in essence, a multiplier, and you're still multiplying by 0.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Tier 3, Conjure Component. You conjure a large number of components that stand in for the potion requirements of all your admixture spells, so you don't need to worry about buying a bunch of potions.
So you don't need to worry about buying a bunch of potions.
Or you ran out.
It actually creates a big stack of vials in your inventory, which you could drink, and they do nothing.
Nice.
If you're a dwarf and you have that ability that gives you effects when you drink things, it works on that. But they're otherwise just a big pile of vials.
That's actually really cool. I wonder if we'll see some Dwarven Artificers to take advantage of that. Yeah. Repair moderate damage SLA. That's pretty straightforward. Reinforced armor. The armor class bonus you get from armor and docents is upped by up to 50%. That's not bad.
That's pretty similar to what you see in a lot of other defensive trees.
Yep. Warding Construct. You create a drone set to counter magical spells. For every 10 seconds for 1 minute, you and nearby allies gain a plus 3 alchemical bonus to saving throws versus magic, and a plus 3 alchemical bonus to saving throws versus traps. That lasts for 10 seconds. So this drone basically will just help with your saving throws.
Yes, helps with your saving throws. Artificers classically have pretty bad saving throws. Which reminds me, back on Tier 2, the Action Boost Defense, we're currently thinking about changing that to Action Boost Saves, in part because Artificers don't get very good saves. And it would be nice if they had a few more saves to help in dealing with magical enemies, or even just if you're disabling a trap or you need to move through a trap to get to something. Having that boost to saves is going to be useful. And the one we were just looking at, the construct, also applies to nearby party members. It's a pretty tight radius, but if you bring people in close, everybody's going to get that plus 3 bonus to saves.
How does that work with Converter? Do you have several drones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, you could, if depending on your build and what things are running on you, you could have as many as four of these things floating around.
Okay. And then to top out Tier 3, you can have Constitution or Intelligence, which pretty straightforward there. Tier 4, Power of Creation gets you more repair and positive spell power.
That one is also gone.
Oh, okay.
in addition, in part because we got some feedback and ran a few more numbers, and we're pretty comfortable with the spell power that they're getting out of the cores relative to other trees, as well as relative to how well they are able to heal. And so that has been replaced with an ability where hitting things in melee gives you a stacking shield bonus to armor class that scales with your artificer level. And so if you're getting into the fray and hitting things in melee, you're going to build up some armor class, which, if you're wielding a rune arm, is going to build up a shield bonus to AC, which will mimic in some ways having a shield in terms of the armor class benefits. We are also potentially working on an ability where you can drop those stacks of armor class to power up that cleave that I mentioned earlier.
Doot Murdoch, will the drones be vulnerable to gust of wind from enemy casters?
No, they are a lot like the Lantern Archon in Favored Soul. They are only kind of there. They're not targetable.
Cool. So you get a Reconstruct SLA in Tier 4. That is basically a lower spell point cost Reconstruct.
Yeah, it's exactly like the one you find in Blade Forged, and like all the other Reconstruct SLAs, that shares a cooldown with it.
All right, Embed Component, Construct Essence or Warforge required. You get additional magic, resistance rating, and constitution. You can no longer use Evasion, Druid Wild Shape, or Primal Avatar Tree Form, but you do get the MRR and con for that.
Yes. So one of the big things in pen and paper about Renegade Mastermaker was improving your body by constructing pieces of it. And that's one of the things we're doing here. So this is one of the couple of abilities in here that requires you to either be Warforged or have gone down that Construct Essence line. If you do, and you take this, you get a big bonus to defenses, but it's mutually exclusive with Evasion, so you won't be able to make use of that, as well as several shape-shifting abilities that would shift you out of a humanoid form, because you're essentially augmenting yourself with mechanical parts that aren't going to act right if you shapeshift.
I don't think we brought that up yet. Renegade Mastermaker is in pen and paper.
Yes, it is. It is in fact a pen and paper prestige class connected to Artificer. I believe it's in the Magic of Eberron.
Cool. And then Renewal Construct on Tier 4 gives you a drone to disperse protective potions every 2 seconds for 20 seconds. You and nearby allies get a determination bonus to temp hit points equal to 25 hit points per Artificer level.
Yeah, so this one caught a lot of flack in the forums, and it's one that, the tree being put out there this early, we didn't balance the numbers quite right yet.
Yeah.
It's one that we're definitely going to be working on. It might have significantly lower numbers. It might be replaced by something less useful but less contentious. We'll see. That one's still a bit of a to be determined. It's next on my list.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who definitely would enjoy that many temporary hit points.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll have to kind of look at the balance of it. And then Constitution or Intelligence as a selector in Tier 4. Now we get to Tier 5. Curative Admixture, Cure Critical Wounds SLA. One called Instant Fix. You perform nearly instantaneous repairs, dispelling most forms of crowd control, and taking the effects of a greater restoration spell. May be used while helpless. 3-minute cooldown. So there's a lot of different kinds of crowd control out there. When we say most forms, do we have kind of a except fors that we might be able to
that's another one
toward?
that is still in progress. I know there have been some issues with similar abilities in other trees and items. When we get around to implementing that, that's something we're going to be looking into. That's another one that's got a pretty big potential to change as we get further along into development.
Sure. Paragon Body. You no longer suffer arcane spell failure from armor. You gain +4 to fort saves, plus 20% racial bonus to maximum hit points, and are immune to most forms of knockdown. So Let's see.
So this is another one. This one is a direct upgrade in Tier 5 from the Construct ability in Tier 4. So it does require, again, the Construct Essence or being Warforged, but it further takes those defensive bonuses up.
Do we have other racial bonuses to max hit points that you're aware of?
I think the dwarf tree may have a smaller one than this, but I'd have to double check.
All right. Regeneration Construct. You are surrounded by arcane energy capable of repairing damage and breaking down construct materials. Basically, this is similar to Radiant Servant, but for repair.
It's almost exactly like it. It just affects, it's a different energy type and affects different things, but otherwise expect it to act exactly the same. It's also fueled by spell points, and I believe the cleric one is divinity charges.
Yeah, correct. And then Mastermaker, your repair wound spells have no max caster level.
Yep. This is another analog to something clerics get, where clerics get their cure spells uncapped. This uncaps repair wound spell specifically. So it does not uncap reconstruct, but it does uncap repair light wounds, repair moderate wounds, repair serious wounds, repair critical wounds.
Samus, again, how does having a, he says bot arm, but let's say construct arm, make you less likely to evade? I guess lore-wise, do we have kind of any thoughts about why no evasion on that?
It's heavy.
Yeah. Okay.
It's essentially an equivalent to the same sort of reason you can't wear heavy armor and evade. You are making modifications to yourself that's making yourself essentially heavier.
Okay. Cool. I'm just looking over our chat here. Mountable turrets on iron defenders. I like it.
We joke often internally about strapping several rune arms to your dog. Haven't made it happen yet, but would be interesting.
Zenfi, stop trying to make melee artificers happen. They're not going to. They actually do happen. We do see some of them.
Yes. Yeah. They are not in the best place right now, but there's a decent amount of support for that in a lot of ways. There's a decent amount of pen and paper support for it in a lot of ways. A little bit more in 4th ed than 3rd ed, but even in 3.5, there's almost more images of artificers wielding clubs and maces than there are of crossbows. The focus on crossbows was almost more of a DDO thing than a pen and paper thing.
Sure. Nivmind, with the Reconstruction SLA sharing a cooldown with Blade Forge and the update to the Warforged tree, basically Blade Forge might need to be looked at in the future, according to him. That's something we can keep in mind. It does share a cooldown. Someone had asked earlier whether these two do share a cooldown. They do.
They do.
Yep. I don't know. Let's see. Anyone else got any questions here? I don't want to take too much of your time here, Steelstar, and I know that we're going to probably wrap up the show a little bit early today just because of the downtime, but let's give people a chance to throw in some last questions there. We already mentioned the Artie Pets and the FAQ. You had a lot of basically people with wants for that third tree.
Oh,
so having to pick the right one was
that's always the hard thing, because I could, easily build 2 more artificer trees that cover niches that the existing 3 trees don't cover. Anything from trapping to specific pet support to an entire tree based on turrets to anything else you can imagine. It's a very, very diverse class, and I wish that we had trees that properly covered everything they can do. But for the time being, we wanted a tree that was going to help some of the existing builds become more viable without needing to rely as heavily necessarily on multi-class support, as well as open up some new builds who might want to take some levels of Artificer for some good defensive bonuses.
Cool. Sorry if you guys are hearing a few clicks here. I'm calling up a page. That's what's going on. So I had a question. Do we think this will make it out in Update 38? That's the plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
The anniversary is going to land before 38, but when 38 launches, we do plan to have this tree out. It's a lot of the static bonuses are in place already. Some of the unique active abilities are partially implemented. Some of them are not. And as I've said, we're doing some, even right now, changes to adding brand new abilities. So there's still significant work to be done, but we really do believe it's going to be out in U38.
What about turrets with other elements like acid? People want their sonic, of course.
Oh, yes.
But, why have we ever thought about doing turrets that aren't just fire?
Yeah, I mean, that's among the things, like I spoke of earlier, of there's a really wide variety of things that could be done with the turrets. and if I ever get the chance, I would love to, and other elemental types is among that.
All right, this is unrelated, but I'm going to answer the question due to the timing. Spicy, when are we getting the anniversary event? Stay tuned. The current calendar has it debuting a little bit before our formal anniversary on the 28th. Stay tuned, though, for the actual downtime. Like I say, it's going to be, I can't remember if we're on 37 patch 3 or 4, but
yeah, one of those.
One of those is going to be a small patch that will include a few bug fixes and some other things. That will also include the changes to the anniversary event that'll allow us to open up the anniversary dungeon in time. I think so far I'm going to jinx it. Oh, I better not even say anything. I'm going to jinx it if I say it's going to be released before the anniversary. So, yeah. Although I think I just did. Anyway, so there we go. That's the current time frame, is pretty soon here, before the anniversary on the 28th. An Artificer Epic Destiny. This one comes up quite a bit. Now, we don't really have class-specific destinies for the most part. So,
getting back in the time machine, going way back to 2011 when destinies were first being put together. The initial idea is that the destinies were not going to correspond to specific classes necessarily, but there would be some that clearly had, closer synergy to the classes than others.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of them had correlations so close to particular classes that eventually the rest that didn't more or less got attached to other classes, and there really wasn't a destiny that was very much themed in the things that artificers do or in the lore that artificers have. And so, they kind of got left out on the edges there. I can't say that we have any plans to introduce an Artificer Destiny or any new Destiny in the immediate future. But, who knows further down the line.
Yeah. I would think if we did, perhaps targeting Magister, which they already sort of get as a default, might be one option.
Magister is a solid choice if you're going Arcanotechnician, if only for the DCs. On a similar level, Draconic Incarnation is good if you want to just deal raw damage, and your DCs are otherwise pretty solid.
All right. Marching Kid, will the uncap for repair spells on max caster levels apply to their mass counterparts?
Yes, I believe that's true. I would expect it to work how the Radiant Servant one does, and I believe that also uncaps the mass versions. So I believe the answer is yes, but expect it to work how the Cleric one does.
All right, and then finally I'm going to kind of wrap it up with this question. We like what you're doing now. We always want you to do more. What's next on your plate?
Oh, next on my plate.
That you can talk about, of course.
Named loot for Update 38 is my immediate next thing. That needs to happen sooner than later. Beyond that, there's a good chance it's the third favored soul tree.
Okay.
But, I need to kind of get the rest of Update 38 together before we get there.
Excellent. All right, well, thanks, Steelstar. I really appreciate you joining me here today.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, and thank you very much for watching the weekly Wednesday Lunchtime live stream on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Give us a follow on Twitch if you would like to be notified for when we go live with shows like this. Subscribe to us on YouTube to get the videos in your subscription feed, and like us on Facebook, both for live videos and the rest of the messaging we do on Facebook. Really appreciate you being here. I'll be back next Wednesday for the weekly Wednesday Lunchtime live stream. We have Twitch streamers all week long, and you can find the schedule over on our Twitch page. Until later, have fun. See ya.